Okay, it's 1 o'clock. So I think we're waiting Councillor Pearson, and Gwen Fisher sends her regrets. She's ill this morning. Excuse me, gentlemen. And we have representatives from Sooke Arts Council, Gord Wallace. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to call you Karen. That's not right. Sorry. Marlene Corral, yes, representing the Sooke Chamber of Commerce. So we have a CERTA rep. Gwen is the CERTA rep. No, she isn't. I'm not sure how they're playing that. And I think that's the full group of us. And WorkLink is not present with us today. But that's fine because this is effectively a continuation of where we left off on Tuesday, thanks to Ms. Bagnall's extremely substantial. Oh, that's me. The echo, my God. I just wanted to start by letting everyone know we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Sooke First Nation, of course, the Coast Salish peoples. The district is also includes a portion of Shianu First Nation land. And we meet here with great respect and gratitude for their stewardship over many thousands of years. I heard about time immemorial recently redefined. I thought time immemorial referred to the time that humans had occupied a particular piece of land. In fact, it refers, according to Mayor Desjardins from Esquimalt, what she'd heard recently was that it refers to the land, the ocean, the mountains, the whole package. So that's what time immemorial represents. And they've been stewarding it for their portion of that time. Okay, so I'm not quite sure how we're moving forward here, so I'll pass over to our corporate officer to tell us more.
I'll introduce you. Okay. Thank you to the chair. We do have Gail Scott, who is going to be providing a presentation on Community Economic Development 101, and I'll pass it over.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay, the agenda we got for today is we're going to start with what is community economic development, and I have a short little video for you, and we'll walk through the PowerPoint. So we could have the next slide up. We don't need that one. We've already said that. So there's, yes.
Is it not on your?
Okay. So what is meant by community economic development? Well, it gets confusing when people call economic development and then community economic development and sustainable development. So I'm just going to explain the difference and why it matters. Community economic development, or a better way of saying it, CED, is about it's more than just economics. It's about people, it's about place and purpose. It's a tool for shaping the kind of community we want to live in and pass on to future generations. It's about placemaking. Sooke's approach to CED is grounded in local values and driven by collaboration. We aim to strengthen resilience by supporting small businesses, encouraging innovation, fostering inclusion, and aligning growth with community priorities. We use a low carbon resilience lens to do so. And we'll talk a little bit about that, more about that later. Okay, we're going to go to the video. Now, I haven't done this before, Anastasia, so how do we do this? Perfect.
Economic development is all around us. And while many can see the beneficial outcomes of the work, not everyone can explain what it looks like to implement. More than just the creation of jobs, economic development is the creation of wealth from which community benefits are realized. Economic development implementation includes developing a strategy that integrates municipal goals with the needs of all residents and businesses, understanding the community's competitive advantages and disadvantages to create a path to the future, identifying goals and metrics of success, developing policies that positively affect businesses, job and income generation, and fiscal sustainability, and using government revenue to invest in services to increase residents' quality of life. Since every community is different, a plan is successful when it aligns with the unique vision and goals of the community. While economic development may not be a cure-all for every issue, it is the driving force behind creating the preferred future for a community and its residents. For more information about the California Association for Local Economic Development, visit caled.org and check out our Economic Development Recovery and Resiliency Playbook at caled.org/playbook.
So just so you know, that's obviously something from California, but it's very good, the first number of slides. We also have tools, resources that are available to all of us here locally. And I've provided you a handout that will include all of that you can put in your workbook. So let's go to the next slide. What does CED mean to you? As an appointed member of the new CED Standing Committee, you don't need to be an economic development practitioner or an expert. What matters most is your local knowledge, lived experience, and willingness to contribute. The more you understand CED, the more impact you can have in shaping Sooke's economic future. Every community faces unique challenges, opportunities, and priorities. That's why this committee brings together both elected officials and community members like you, people who live, work, and care about the future of Sooke. I'm going to test you here. Please share. I'm talking to the committee as opposed to the representatives here. Please share 3 words that come to mind when you think of community economic development Sooke. Can we start with you, Scott?
I guess one of the words would be support. Maybe another word would be an inventory of what we have so that we kind of know what we need. Not sure about my third word. Get back to you.
That's good anyways. Two to start is good. You, Tony?
Partnerships, tourism, and Sooke.
Excellent. Deputy Mayor Bateman?
Yeah, well, I'm taking note of the words used so far, so I won't duplicate, but I will use vibrancy, the environment, and carbon reduction.
Excellent. Catherine?
I wrote down potential, well, in Sooke, there's quite a lot of potential here, diversity of economic projects and beautification.
Excellent. And Councillor Beddoes? Michael?
Yeah, opportunity. I think that this group needs to create opportunity for businesses. Direction. I think it's some scattered direction in this community right now, and we need to focus on something and some goals. We need to set some goals and make sure that they're smart goals, they're achievable and timely. So opportunity, direction, and goals.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next slide is understanding the difference of what I said before. Some people refer it just to economic development, some call it CED, some call it sustainable development, and there is a difference. Originally, economic development, the aim was to improve the economic well-being of a region, often by attracting investment and increasing jobs and growing the GDP. Back when I first started into this career, it was called smokestack chasing. It's not that anymore. So the term we're looking at for economic development is growth, investment, and competitiveness. And then CED, it's a local approach to economic development that is community-led and focuses on social, environmental, and economic outcomes. And the term for this is local empowerment, inclusion, and quality of life. And I actually had to go back and retrain and get another certificate for CED because I had one for ED and people kept saying, no, it's all about CED. So there is a little bit of a difference, but it's really all comes together. Sustainable development meets present needs without comprising the ability of future generations to meet theirs, balancing economy, environment, and equity. And the term for this is long-term resilience, balance, and stewardship. They all work together, but the overarching title is community economic development. The next slide's something that will be included in your handout package. And because the district of Sooke uses a low carbon resilience lens, this demonstration here will give you your economic co-benefits, your environmental co-benefits, and then your social co-benefits. And this chart is hung all around our district office. We follow it, and we're expecting that our Community Economic Development Standing Committee will also support that. So rethinking, next slide. Rethinking the connections. The idea that community development and economic development are separate no longer holds true. In today's world, successful economic development depends on strong, inclusive community development. And meaningful community development must be rooted in the principles of sustainable development, ensuring long-term well-being for the people, place, and planet. So something to think about. How do you see these three areas, economic development, community development, and sustainability, showing up at Sooke today? Councillor Beddoes, have you got an idea for that?
We have to identify, to me, where we put our energies. If we're going to be thinking of economic development, then do we concentrate on the tourist element, or do we concentrate on the industrial element and make a decision on that respect? I don't know if I'm answering your question right or not, but I think, again, we need to focus very clearly on what we want to achieve. And we need to get some opportunities for people to come out here. There's some great things out here, but most people don't know about them.
Absolutely.
And how many do we want?
And Catherine, what do you think about the three merging?
I see it right now in our nonprofit areas, lots of things developing towards the best interests of Sooke residents. But yeah, agree with Councillor Beddoes that we need to diversify a little bit more. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Okay, nonprofits have been mentioned. I would say very much here at the District of Sooke, where community economic development is a central foundational piece of our strategic plan. Interesting, this is the second Community Economic Development Committee. There was a lot of work done from 20 to 22. I see that as evidence. I see the localism of the Sooke Shop Local program at the moment and the work of the chamber. And CERTA's work as well as they launch what's next.
Councillor
Tony.
St. Pierre.
I think a couple of recent events come to mind. One was the visit of Minister Popham, Minister of Agriculture, and a large number of experts on food systems from around Sooke were gathered together and shared information, made connections, started sorting out some of the gaps in our food system, even just in that one meeting. And certainly in terms of sustainability, trying to get our food systems producing more than 3% of what we eat would be part of that sustainability, and would also have a huge number of economic spin-offs. So I see that as wonderful. And also recently, the South Island Prosperity Partnership had a Rising Economy event where similarly, the region was put into focus in terms of being a place to attract different types of business. And we have a number of sectors which are incredibly strong in this region, which I did not know and realize. And that I think that Sooke is in a position to set ourselves up. Now that those sectors are identified, it's clear that it's actually our brains, not our brawn, that we can sell, and we can sell a lifestyle as opposed to anything else. And so we can ideally attract maybe educational institutions, or I think the four that came to mind were pharmaceuticals, AI and IT applications, aeronautics, and the blue economy, basically ocean research. I think we're a great place to live. We can actually hope to attract, maybe if we actually pre-zoned or determined where we wanted something like that to happen. I think we're in a good place. So that's what I.
Excellent, thanks. And Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that, identifying the sectors that are probably our best opportunity for economic development. Also setting up sort of short-term goals, but also long-term goals. I think setting up some long-term goals will really help us in the future, and then maybe setting up some short-term goals that we can get some success, over the next year or so. It'd be great.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so the next slide, we actually talk about goals. So the CED goals, the first is to attract businesses, to identify and bring in new companies and investment. And in order to attract new businesses, you also have to think about attracting new relocating families, because often when they're coming in, they're setting up businesses. Creating and retaining jobs. This is very important to Sooke, because of the fact that we all recognize our highway situation creates for an awful lot of families not the quality of life they want. They spend 3 hours a day going to and from work. So creating and retaining jobs within Sooke is very important, ensuring that people have local opportunities for local employment. And diversifying the economy. We want to reduce reliance on a single industry or sector. We've already lost our fishing, we've lost our logging, and we know that we have the opportunity to explore the possibilities within the blue marine economy, tourism economy, visitor economy. So there's also other great opportunities that are starting to present themselves. They're being talked about at a much higher level than just municipal. And that's the film industry in BC is huge. Right here in Sooke, we're a very attractive area for film production. So there's a number of new industry we could be looking at. Improving the quality of life, creating a better environment for residents to live and work. And that's what it's all about, is the quality of life and the creation of place. So who's involved in all of this? Well, it's the local governments, it's our businesses, whether they be small 1 to 5 person businesses or up to 50+ businesses. Or 50+ employees, I should say. community organizations, and we do have a lot of community organizations. In fact, Sooke, I think, is known for that. Somebody told me last week we have over 100 not-for-profits. I don't know if that's true, but I know we have lots. And individuals, all our citizens and residents. So everyone has to be involved to grow the community in the direction that we want it to go. So the role of the CED Standing Committee, which is you lovely people. I'm gonna just flip over, is who are we? What one local business or spot in Sooke do you think everyone should know about and why? I'll start with Scott.
I think, Stickleback, no, I'm just joking.
That's a good one.
I think, being able to, this kind of brings up a great point, having the ability to highlight some of these businesses that we have. And, one of the great businesses that has come back to Sooke is the Sooke Harbor House. And I think, there would be a good example of us being able to market them internationally to bring a new or renew group of people that can come to our community, and a different demographic maybe that comes to our community again. So it's just identifying businesses maybe and showcasing them to the community, and then the community then can showcase it to the world. Because sometimes we get people in this community that still don't know that certain businesses exist here. So if there's a way of us helping identify that to the community, then it's sort of like the first step, I think. So.
Excellent. As a matter of fact, our our communications director, Christina Moog, has been running a campaign for the last couple of weeks, I guess it is, on identifying businesses in Sooke and showcasing them. And it's been very, very popular. And you're right, there's a lot of businesses in town we may not know about. So if you could bring one new service, shop, or experience to Sooke, what would it be? Councillor St. Pierre.
Give it to me, give it to me.
I think we need something like a Costco, honestly, just so that we can stop getting on Route 14 to grab stuff. Lots of other things, and that's not gonna be popular, but I think having some way to buy to keep people from just. But that doesn't have to be Costco. I mean, it could be a grown local Sooke type of situation. It's just keeping those dollars in Sooke, and keeping those jobs in Sooke, and keep those cars off the road. Because otherwise we're just bleeding out.
Okay, thank you, Councillor St. Pierre. I'm going to go to Deputy Mayor Bateman. I'll have to get my glasses on. What's something you would like people to know about your background that connects to community economic development?
Well, well, Carol and I have lived here for over 20 years now, and we have been shopping locally pretty much nonstop, with the occasional forays into Langford and Victoria, of course. I think that's basically it. It's this recognition that that we have much of what we need is right here. And our grocery stores, we lack a shoe store, we lack clothing. We have the items that are being identified by the chamber in their surveys. Yeah, I'm a counselor and I'm interested in this subject very much.
Great, thank you very much. Catherine, I'm going to ask you, when you think of a thriving community, what's the first image that comes to your mind?
In Sooke, I think it's Heritage Row and seeing people coming in and out of the shops along Heritage Row and yeah, back to what Councillor Bateman said about those opportunities for folks in the community and yeah, just busyness, you know, people coming and going and having access to the infrastructure like healthcare and healthcare that we need here. That's one example.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. And Councillor Beddoes, what's a small thing that brings you joy in your day-to-day life in Sooke?
Even to find a restaurant in the community, because it is very difficult. When somebody comes out and I got a group of 4 or 5, I am really hard pressed. So if I can find some room for a restaurant, it brings me joy.
Wonderful.
That goes back to some of the other things I was going to say. We need some more restaurants and people reason to stay.
Okay, excellent. So let's go to the key strategic focus areas. Basically, if you're focusing in on strategies, creating more jobs and job variety closer to home would be one of them. Keeping businesses and getting new ones, a better quality of life, more people and businesses paying taxes. Because in my training, this is going back many years ago, we were always taught the one thing that'll grow your community are taxes. There's not an awful lot of other things that can actually grow it without the taxes. So that's very important. More productive use of property, promoting your community's assets, and making and selling more local products. So those key strategic focus areas I just spoke to come right out of our strategic priorities plan for 2024 right up to 2027. That will be included in your handout that goes in your white binder. And it's important to look at the primary versus secondary employers also. Primary employers produce goods or services sold outside of the local area. They bring new money into the community by way of manufacturing, tech firms, tourism operators. Secondary employers serve the local population. Pardon me. They circulate money already within the community, such as retail, restaurants, and salons. Why does that matter? To grow a strong, resilient economy, we need both types. We need the primary and the secondary. Primary employers help expand the economy, while secondary employers help sustain it.
Gail, could you give us some examples on that previous slide?
I'm going to say a primary employer for Sooke would be Butler Brothers. They're right into manufacturing of cement. They've got the gravel pits. They're a large employer. They've got, I'm not sure how many employees they have, but it's well over 50. And they bring new money into this community. Secondary, it's all of our retail and service industry operators. It's our Sea of Bloom. It's our new Bull and Sons, and we are attracting new small businesses. This is very important. Had the opportunity with Chris Marshall last week to sit down and talk to a commercial realtor about commercial space on ground floor. That's part and parcel of development. That's broken ground. All the spaces are spoken for. That's amazing. And that's good news. A lot of them will be service and retail.
Councillor Beddoes?
think that leads into. I've encountered a number of businesses that would like to expand and they got nowhere to go.
I know.
And they can't find any space, so we need to somehow encourage more retail space. One is that where my wife works occasionally, the little boutique shop, she gets all sorts of tourists in there.
Oh, yes,
People in Victoria, and she'd like to expand. She can't find a place
I know.
reasonable. So anyway, that's something that I think we should be working on here. And
That should be a priority
Okay.
action that we need to look into seriously. I
Okay.
know for a fact that Bosby's Food has been looking for expansion space. They can't find it. I get a number of calls throughout the year from local businesses, all stating the same thing. We could grow, but we have no place to go. So that's very important. You have to have the infrastructure available if you want to attract any kind of business. I've always said it's navel gazing. You look within yourself first, identify where the weaknesses are, where the gaps are, where the opportunities are. Once you've done that, then you start fixing that. And then you start attracting new families, new businesses, large and small. And that's what grows your community. Okay, the next slide. So what's next?
Scott. Mr.
Oh.
Taylor, I'm supposed to call you.
It's okay. I just wanted to maybe mention, yeah, that's one of the points I wanted to make is not only identifying maybe the businesses that we have that inventory, maybe the businesses that we're looking for, but it's also maybe to look at the community and talk to some of the landowners that may be looking for that opportunity, but don't know there's others looking for their opportunity, and maybe a way of us allowing that link to connect with landowners that can talk with developers that can say that if you develop this land, we already have this community of businesses that are willing to support the developer. So there's kind of that link between the sale of that property, the development of that property, and the need of that property for the development to happen. So if we can kind of identify all three of those factors, I think it would help that economics go a little bit faster. So
Very good observation. And that's where we fit right into planning and development. CED, my role, reports to planning and development. We are aligned in many, many ways, and you can't do one without the other. So yes, land inventory is important. I'm going to say industry inventory is important, and we need to have those. I don't know how long ago they may have been looked at, but certainly not in my time, which isn't that long here. But it is something that needs to be done and brought up to current appreciation. So what's next? I can't read this. Just a minute. Oh, that's the end. That's the end of my PowerPoint. So what's next is I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Are you going to speak to anything specific here today?
No, not specifically, but just to provide a little bit more on what Gail was talking about in terms of the interrelationship between economic development and land use development and planning. The difficulty for us as staff and council is that we, of course, can't force people to sell property. We can't force people to develop property. And so, people are saying, well, why don't you pre-zone property to allow for retail development or commercial development? But again, we can't, well, I guess we could be heavy-handed as a municipality and demand people, pre-zone their property for them on their behalf against their will. But, so we're somewhat limited in what we can do in terms of encouraging or requiring people to provide land for what we need. I've worked in many communities, and there are ways in which when you have landowners who are interested in having their property develop for industrial or commercial purposes, we as staff can put, brochures together and land use information together for that property so that when they go to advertise the property, like in a real estate opportunity, that we can provide them with the, what the size of the land is, what the use of it is, what its long-term vision of the community is, and what the opportunities are. So, but I think the important thing is that when Gail and this committee identify needs in the community, we can, help with that evolution of a property going from being vacant and sitting idly to a fully developed property. And there's obviously a lot of steps along the way to get from that vacant property to a fully functioning developed property. But I think that it's good because when you have economic development, planning and building under the same umbrella, we can work together to provide those opportunities. But there are limits to what we can do, because again, it's really up to the will of the property owner ultimately to determine what they want to do with their property. And certainly we can encourage them, we can provide them with opportunities, but it's ultimately their decision as to what they want to do.
Thank you very much. So at the after the presentation, which we've just finished, I just want to say thank you all for putting your names forward. You're all going to be great. I know you are, and you all bring very special skill sets to the table. The next meeting is June 2nd, and I believe it's every 2 months that we meet, and so you will receive a schedule. I believe it might even be in the binders you received last week. I'm going to take this opportunity right now to come and hand you handouts. They're 3-hole punched, so you can put them into your new binders. And I did some exploring on various tools, and I came up with a local economic development for local leaders guideline book. It was created by the BC Economic Development Association, of which we belong to as a district of Sooke. And it's a very well-respected organization. In addition to having this guidebook, I also went to the province of BC's Job, Economic Development and Initiatives website, and downloaded for you resources and links, all linking you into the various tools that help to, I guess, give you more knowledge, more insight as to what can be done and is done through community economic development. So we'll all be on the same page with the same resources, etc. Additionally to that, you're going to receive the strategic priorities 2024-27 for the district of Sooke. Some of those I brought up on one of the slides talking about the strategic focuses. And it's a great little strategy, not very long. Additionally to that, we've got a strategic an action plan that was created in December 2021 on community economic development for the district. So this will keep you aligned with what the district's priorities are. So, and I think we also had that green lens, was it? Well, I'm trying to remember. Sorry, but there is another document in there. So I'm gonna
Okay, thank you, Gail, very much. I think prior to the 3-hole punch, why don't we I think we have until 1:30 or 2:30. If all of you are willing and prepared to stay for that, we're here to talk and learn and evolve here. We don't have an agenda, so it'll be quite loose and random and interesting, I think, as we move forward here. Thank you for those foundational documents, the strat plan and the CED strategy and action plan are two of them. There's also a Sooke economic analysis that was done in 2019 that identified unused industrial and commercial lands within the district. There is, the chamber has produced a number of things, including an annual economic survey. There's a number of touchstones that we can use moving forward, while under full understanding, as the corporate officer shared with us last week, that we must meet the terms of the mandate. We're not to wander too far astray. There's enough sort of generalized pieces within that mandate that would allow us to bring in a variety of what might be called tangential matters, but if there's passion to do that, then this committee could, through very clearly worded motions, move it forward to council for its approval. Of course, there's 4 of us on council here, so ideally we'd be able to pass. We've got quorum. We could pass whatever we bring forward. So starting point, thank you for those questions. It'd be fun to maybe revisit those questions here and now as we continue the conversation. We can get our advisors into the mix here as well. I think one thing I wanted to I have a question, and that relates to our the strat plan and the reporting out on it. Every 6 months, I believe we'll be getting an update. But I believe you have some metrics that can measure our progress moving forward. Would you like to speak to that? That's things like business licenses and yeah.
Thanks for the question, Deputy Mayor Bateman. Yes, KPIs, key performance indicators, are important. You have to be able to evaluate and measure. And if you're not providing those within your reporting, you're going to get some feedback. And the feedback is going to say, how do you know you actually accomplished that, or just how far have you come so far? And always, it doesn't matter whether your community is hundreds of thousands of people and businesses or very small. Business license statistics are one of the ways of being able to measure the growth and health of your community. You are able to identify whether there's a percentage increase or decrease year over year in the number of businesses that operate within your community. So that's very important. It also separates it out so that you can learn what percentage of your businesses are home-based, what percentages are storefront. It'll break it down into industry codes. How many businesses have we got in manufacturing? How many businesses have we got in retail? And so all of that is hugely important to understand what your business profile for your community is all about. But in addition to that, taxes. And for sure, whenever a new business comes into town and sets up, there's a tax base for that. Whenever a new family comes into town and purchases a house, or builds a house, there's new taxes for that. So taxing is another way of being able to monitor your growth and health of your community. It's very important to be able to track that. Also, looking at grants and success of grant applications. How much money did you actually secure to deliver on a certain economic development project? And you can measure that year over year. And if you can see an increase year over year in taxes, in business licenses, and in whatever I just said, that's the way you're going to be able to demonstrate and stand up and speak to that.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Yes, I've got some numbers here. The initial strat plan package came to council. I don't know when, January, I think it was, and it indicates here in terms of business licenses, there were 875 issued in 2020. We're up to 1023. That's an increase of 123, 155 over the last 4 years. So that's important. I think the chamber identifies something in the order of 1,300 businesses in Sooke, according to your latest survey. And that question, how many businesses do you know in Sooke, for example? 1,300. So I know the bylaw services are very focused on driving these numbers up and catching as many as possible. Also in this report, there's an indication of, Gail, the time you spend working in relationship with other groups in town, CERTA and the chamber and WorkLink, et cetera. So that's and you serve on 5 organizations and you've attended 50 meetings annually. Then there's the numbers here in terms of funding from Destination Canada, $475,000 in the last 2 years. And then the promise of the municipal regional destination tax. So now I'm not quite sure how to move forward here, but let's discuss. What are we going to discuss? Why don't we go around the table? Here's an idea, and we'll bring in the advisors here to what are you hoping to achieve through this work over these next perhaps 18 months? Scott. By the way, as Al said the other day, we don't need to go through, I don't believe we need to be too formal here. Yeah, so Scott.
Yeah, I think a lot of the discussion already has identified a lot of good economic development opportunities. Just talking about the land opportunities, maybe identifying one particular land right now that Sunny Shores Marina would be a good example. I know Andy's been attempting to sell his property for many years now, and I wonder if there's a way of the city and the planners going and talking with Andy and in some ways pre-zoning that property to show a developer, listen, the property's blank over there right now. And when a developer goes to that property, they might go, oh my God, what am I going to do? And have to go in the unknown of what Sooke might allow them to do, let's say. So I wonder if there's an opportunity to pre-zone that property. I know there's some cost to that, but maybe Sooke takes on that cost, but then it hands it to the developer at some point. So they kind of pre-zone it. There's probably a bit of cost to that, let's say. But the developer then can see the vision and see the opportunity and also work with that opportunity of what their vision might be, rather than coming into a blank slate and finding out that there's this big unknown of bureaucracy that maybe they don't know about because they've never even developed in our city yet. So just being able to kind of show that this property has all this opportunity and maybe multiple opportunities that the city can identify, the planners can help identify, and then the planner comes in and goes, okay, now I know what the fees are, I know what I can do, and they know where their investments can come from then at that point. So maybe that's kind of a way we can look. And then another one is right beside it, the Goodrich Peninsula there. You're talking about industrial lands, creating taxes. There's some great opportunity with that land as well, especially with the remediation that's happening now in BC, that they're allowing some of those lands to be remediated a little bit quicker. So those would be probably 2 right there, opportunities that I think maybe Sooke could maybe help with that process.
Scott, I'd like to just respond to that. I have that on my radar. I've already spoken with Sunny Shores owner. We're trying to find out who the numbered company is that owns the Goodrich old sawmill site. And if you don't know it, Brian Mooney's building is up for sale, which was a food processing building. And so I pulled together Brian, a couple of counselors, and a couple of consultants that are doing this at no cost because they're friends of mine. And we're going to look at our waterfront and the available lands that could be available here in Sooke for development. And again, that all falls back into planning and development, but it's definitely on my radar because I see that as one of our greatest opportunities right now because we don't have the land that we need to start looking at industrial development. But thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, good subject. And I think, you know, the earlier mention of the desperate need for commercial space in Sooke. And so the question of pre-zoning properties in the town center to really begin to encourage rapid development. So I'll get to you, Councillor Beddoes, next. And Chris, I'm just curious, any comments on the way this conversation is going? Your thoughts on pre-zoning and the upsides and downsides?
The benefit of rezoning, pre-zoning is obviously you take away, as you said, the uncertainty with it. But there's a lot of costs involved with rezoning a property. And so if the applicant's not doing it, then it's the municipality who's taking on those costs. So you need to get traffic engineers to do traffic studies to determine whether it's going to impact, say, access onto the highway. You might need geotechnical studies, you might need servicing studies, environmental assessments. So these are all reports and studies that would be needed as part of the rezoning process. And if the applicant's not paying for it, then the taxpayers of Sooke are paying for it on behalf of the developer. So that would be the downside. Also, there's things that a municipality can negotiate as part of a rezoning application for the community benefit. Because usually when you're rezoning property, there's a land lift, they call it, where the property increases in value from whatever it's valued at as a rural residential property to a commercial industrial property. There is an increase in value of that land, and oftentimes there's a sort of negotiation that goes on as, you know, what can you provide to the community? We're providing you with this land lift. What can you provide us in return for that? So that's a negotiation that can happen during that process. But, you know, there's a lot of plans and drawings and public process and, you know, that needs to happen as part of these applications. And so who should be paying for that?
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes, Al, as we call you.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Thanks very much. I was very impressed by that. Thank you. I'm here to learn. And I thought, well, there's an opportunity. And what I wanted to do in this realm was to identify opportunities. So there's an opportunity there. And then, of course, you have to look at the stumbling blocks to make that happen. And I've heard some of them, but I also were thinking that we can overcome a lot of those. One, I don't know how it works, but let's say, for instance, we proceeded with trying to do something with Sunny Shores. If we struck an agreement that we covered some upfront costs, providing we could, when the sale of the land came to, could recoup those losses, that might be a win-win for us. So it's a matter of, I know we have staff here to advise us and they warn us about all this stuff, but really the buck stops with us. If we wanted to go that route, we'd have to weigh the pros and cons and make that decision. But that might be a nice sellable little chunk of land down there because it's, I mean, it does have some economic value now. I don't know exactly what they pay us in taxes. But anyways, that's a good opportunity. And Goodrich Peninsula is that mysterious one out there. I don't know, but that's good. I think that's a good starting point. If nothing else happened today, that's a good one for me.
Mm. And that's the Wiley family, is it not, that owns? Are you?
From what I understand, the Willie Dodge family owned it for many years, and then they just recently sold it, from what I understand. But yeah, one of the points that I would love to make as well, Al, was I do believe that those fees could easily come back. So when we're talking about development, it's from what I understand, I'm not a developer, so it's time. Time is money. So if somebody comes to the town that wants to develop that land, for instance, they never developed in Sooke, the first thing that they'll think of is how much time is going to take me to break this ground. Because I know how much time it takes me to build it, but how much time is it going to take me to break that ground? So if we can even answer that question, that's one major unknown for a developer that we can attract. And then on top of that, if there is a fee to that, maybe it is Sooke initially taking on that fee, talking with Andy, saying when you sell that property, there's negotiation, obviously through lawyers, and that Andy would then have to pay for that. Or Andy then negotiates with the developer as part of the sale, that the developer then pays for that. But it's already, so Sooke necessarily wouldn't pay for any of that. They would just have to upfront that cost. And then what you could do is maybe Sooke doesn't even need to upfront that cost. Maybe we talk to the companies that you were talking about that do the surveys, that we willing to upfront that cost, knowing that there's negotiation between the three parties that could be negotiated. So technically Sooke might not even need to pay for it. You could get the companies to upfront that cost, that they know that once the sale of the property is done, and then we increase the value of the property for Andy, and the developer gets what they want, and we get a quicker turnaround of creating taxes in a development property that might sit there for another 5 more years. Andy's been trying to sell this property for a long time. So I think if we have the ability to help the developer who look at that property in a different light with a lot of unknowns taken out of the picture, I think we'll get a developer in that property a lot quicker if we can do that.
Excuse me, may I respond to that again? I spoke with the owner just last week. And he made it very clear he would love the district of Sooke to seriously look at somehow purchasing that property and developing it to what Sooke could be and should be. He is very, very much a Sooke resident and very proud of it. It just is not turning any revenue for him anymore. The fishing is so limited now. And that's how he used to make his revenue. And the property's in disrepair, the buildings are. So in order to bring them up to scratch, where they could be rentable on a VRBO, Airbnb, or short long-term rental, is not a good business idea. That just isn't, it cost him too much money. So he made it very clear if we could somehow bring it forward, that he would love for the district to explore this opportunity and turn it into something great.
Now, I'm going to, before we go to counselors, I would like to, our, what would be the words? Non-voting, but I would like Catherine to speak next. And please tell us, the original question was, what would you like to achieve with this committee, I think, going forward?
Yeah, I have enjoyed the conversation. Everybody's offered some really great thoughts. I also jotted down some thoughts while we were talking. And Gail mentioned that the strategy was developed in 2021, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to update that, because we now have some significant threats of tariffs and border security to tourism in particular. I actually did reach out to Gail about it because I am very concerned about what's happening south of the border. We did touch a bit already about commercial and retail space. That is a huge concern for businesses who want to expand and attracting new businesses, but without the proper infrastructure in place, it's a challenge. We know that. We've talked about that before, but also the labor pool. What kind of labor pool do we have in Sooke? Do we have a sense of that? I don't know. maybe that's something that we want to explore, is doing an inventory of what type of labor pool we have. And can WorkLink in tourism, for example, how can they support that with training, with hospitality training now in anticipation of the MRDT and that taxation process that's underway now? So that was another thought. And then again, the education and training piece, you know, it'd be great to have a satellite campus out in Sooke, so that we're keeping students off the road, because without an adequate transit system, it's clogging up more of the roads and causing more climate, contributing more to the climate change situation right now. And then I mentioned earlier mapping the nonprofit organizations. We know that nonprofit organizations are usually there to fill a gap. And so how can we see what's out there? How can we continue to support nonprofits to do some of the work until the District of Sooke or other levels of government are able to fill that gap themselves? And then I was curious to know if Sooke Nation and Shianu were invited to partake in any of these conversations. When we're talking about land development, you have to include First Nations. It's part of UNDRIP and part of that process to make sure that we have, I've forgotten the name of them, archaeological monitors in place when we're doing land development. So I'd be really curious to know if they'd been invited, and if not, can we? And then, yeah, just regarding the land development, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to look at some of the policy and law and bylaws to reduce some of the red tape, the time that that you mentioned for some of the development that could happen. I know that other municipalities have done some of that streamlining of the processes. So taking a look at that and seeing if there's a way that Sooke can do that too. And there was one more piece that I've forgotten now. So that's where I'm thinking right now, is the strategy. Oh, and the low carbon resilient, doing all of that while reflecting a low carbon resilience is a daunting task. So maybe defining what does that mean in terms of economic development? So anyways, those are my notes, and yeah, thank you.
Good notes. Thank you, Catherine. I would just address a few of what points you've raised. The labor pool, interestingly, that economic analysis of 2019 raised that very point. Kind of got my back up a bit here, but it says low education levels hold back the viability of attracting high pay, high value added companies to Sooke. And the key point here is most workers, 71%, commute out of town for employment opportunities. In terms of First Nations, these committees were set up with a very specific desire to attract someone with a First Nations background. And that's one of the reasons you're here, Catherine. I know the previous committee, as a select committee, did have a Jeff Frank, the Sooke's economic development officer, was on the committee himself. So one way we can move forward is to ensure presentations and involvement, as you've suggested. Development processes, the speed thereof, there has been an immense amount of work being done over the last 2 years with the development approval process review. And I know Mr. Marshall is implementing these new practices. AI is on the horizon, of course, and that's a whole nother matter. But I think the processes are, we're moving quicker, though there's still long wait times for rezonings, right? The CED strategy, yes, that's a really substantial document. It was created by Gail's predecessor, and I know, Gail, tourism has become such a strong focus of your work. So that might be something we could look at and do a workshop on. And low carbon resilience is a very tricky thing, but there's those 27 categories on the map. I think it used to be, oh, there it is. No, it's not on your desktop, but those 27 categories, they do inform the ideas that it's a whole of organization understanding that these low carbon resilience co-benefits need to be considered in every decision. But yeah, it's tricky, and it's easy to just charge forward without in the desire to build our commercial tax base. So that's 83.5% of our taxes are residential here. And we definitely need to change that ratio. So voting members, before I'm reminded here that you get to speak now. So councillors, St. Pierre or Pearson, and then we'll go into Gord and Marlene. Okay, Tony.
I think one of the things that excited me when I was looking at some of our strat plan items was actually the idea of potentially a feasibility study or some such, or even just moving forward with an ECDEV corporation.
Yes.
And the reason I think that is important is because waiting on the private sector to decide that they want to build some sort of gap in our local economy isn't necessarily going to happen. First of all, they have all of our zoning to go through and all the rest. And as pointed out earlier, there's a lot of uncertainty. And so it's hard to actually commit to that kind of an investment. But an ECDEV corporation at arm's length from the district that could actually identify, for example, Sunny Shores decided to develop a full-on marina. This is a gift to future generations where as a local government and with an ECDEV corporation, we don't have to worry about whether or not it is substantially profitable immediately, because we know that the spin-off benefits to the entire community are worth it because we have a big picture. We can also access through the MFA, very good rates in terms of building that sort of thing out. But right now we're really very limited in terms of the municipal act and the local government charter in terms of what we can do, which means we need another engine to push that sort of thing. So you were talking about this, and brilliant, because I think, yes, absolutely. But if we can pre-zone for ourselves in some ways, and then if someone else decides, hey, we love your pre-zoning, we'll do it for you. That rocks, okay? But in the meanwhile, we can just say, let's do it, okay? We need this thing, and it's according to the OCP, and it's what the community says they want, and all the rest, we just do it. Instead of waiting for someone in the private sector to say, well, could be good, could be bad, I don't know. We have to make money at this, So we're government, we don't have to make money at it. So that sounds awful, but it's true. It gives us options. The other thought that I had, which I think is incredibly important to maintain, is affordable housing affects our local economy. Pointed out the labor pool. We don't have a labor pool unless we have affordable housing. We can't attract new families and new businesses unless we have affordable housing. We can't keep the people that can work in tourism jobs, which are not generally very lucrative, unless we have affordable housing. So what do we do about getting creative with affordable housing? And, back in the day, you had, for example, businesses that would establish and actually build housing for their workers. Can we do that? How do we incentivize it? What else can we look at? It's been done in the past that we could do again. But we need affordable housing for workers. Otherwise, we have no economy. Sorry, or no growing economy, no expanding economy. And right now, affordable housing is obviously not really existing. So what are we going to do about that? There's probably more, but that's it for me.
Thank you, Tony. I'll just, my comments here would, yes, Municipal Development Corporation is in the strat plan. It's under the next category. It's interesting looking at these ongoing, now, and next. The ongoing and now, the district is underway with these things. It's the next items: enhance community appeal and economic growth through aesthetics and functionality. Create an employment land strategy, and lead the establishment of a municipal development corporation. So those are three things that we can very tangibly do and bring motions forward to council, and probably be told, well, that's next. So be patient, and we can't deal with this now. But anyway, we'll figure it out. Okay, councillors, Pearson, and then Kevin and Al.
Okay, Councillor Pearson. Okay. I apologize for being late, and probably I should have put my glasses on before I looked at I know tomorrow's meeting is at 1 o'clock, and for some reason I looked at it and said 1:30 today, so I do apologize for being late. Lots of good discussion. What I'm most excited about is that we're here again discussing it. Again. It has happened many, many times in the past. We do have a strat plan in place, and I agree with every comment that has come from around the table. And I fully appreciate our economic development officer and our planner, because tomorrow's meeting is around land use. And I think land use and economic development, you can't separate the two. Absolutely are intrinsic to each other and the success. What am I hoping to get out of this? Because that was your original question. I personally like to look at, and hopefully as a group, we can identify what the roadblocks are to economic development. Because we have multiple roadblocks, and it's not one person, one thing, or one entity. It's a group of things. Zoning, pre-zoning, we can talk about all those things. So that's what I would be hoping to, and is to sort of drill down and get a spear point on, okay, this is a potential roadblock. Is it really a roadblock or isn't it? Because sometimes I found that last time I was on the Economic Development Committee, which was, I don't know how many, 10 years ago, we got sidelined. And roadblocks were right sort of there, but we never really got to removing those roadblocks. And so I would be looking forward to that. First Nations involvement is absolutely critical because they are involved in land decisions, and we have to be respectful of UNDRIP. You know, we talk about low carbon initiatives. If we have a strong economic development in our community, our biggest polluter is cars traveling back and forth. So your low carbon resiliency almost takes care of itself by your local economic development. The you know, back to our planner, it flows for me out of the OCP. If we could identify an area where economic development is, you know, Sunny Shores is great. The Sooke sawmill that shut down in 1996, which is 30 years ago now, sitting there empty, is a great opportunity. But again, it's do we pull it or do we push it, or do they pull it or do they push it? I think our OCP has to identify where our economic engine is, which is our downtown core. To Gail's point today, ground floor businesses, more retail space. That retail space question has been on council long before me. Back to our former director, we look for economic, she's in the crowd, economic development back in those days, and retail space. There was a shortage of it then. There's still a shortage. So what's the roadblock to that? Because developers they only work for one thing, money. That's what they come for. So something in that process, I don't know what it is. I have my suspicions, but in a group discussion, we've got to get to the roadblocks. What prevents them from coming here? What prevents them from saying, you got 17,000 people? That's a pretty good audience. 17,000 people right here. Our downtown core, can we rezone that? Absolutely. We downzoned RU4 property all over Sooke because we didn't want them to develop because the sewer was in the town core. So we pre-zoned all the property. We just went to council went all stuck their hands up, and there's a whole bunch of people came in and yelled and screamed, but nothing. We never even heard anything about it ever again. Now those people are applying for rezoning because we rezoned. So there's ways and avenues that we can do it, and sometimes to Tony's point, I'm going to practice that. Or to Al's point, sometimes you have to bite the bullet. I know that's not probably a modern day saying, but you have to look at what is it that we can do. If we take the guesswork out, to Scott's point, of timeframes, developers will come. Right now, they're on a holdup. You know, I had a conversation with our CEO last week about, you know, predictability is really important. I think people don't care if they know what it is. When they don't know what it is, they care. If it's 3 years, and I mean, our development process right now is 3 to 6 years. If somebody had a piece of property in Sooke right now that was commercial, we'll use a big piece of vacant land, say it was near the post office in Sooke. Before a customer went through the door, 6 years. that's the reality of where we're living. And that's not just Sooke, that's all municipalities. So somehow we've got to, I'm excited. I'm excited to be on both committees. I'm excited to be on this committee to voice my opinion, and there's good brains here. So to our director of planning. So if we have a finite zone, like in the OCP, when it's finite, we got a nice measurement there. Can we not just do a massive traffic study to say, right now we go down this road, okay, you got to get a traffic study, and these timeframes add up and add up. Can we not do a massive time or traffic study or a geotechnical I know that's sort of site specific, but maybe a bad example, but traffic itself, can we not say, okay, we can develop in that downtown core? And I don't want you to answer me now. I just like questions that would come forward from this committee would be, can we blanket zone our downtown to maximum density with commercial, and then have those discussions to say, okay, the turnaround time is 3 years to a developer before he can put the shovel in the ground. Anyway, lots of thoughts. I don't have anything else to say. Sorry, that was probably quite a bit of stuff. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Through me to you, Mr. Marshall. Yeah, I'm curious, is that 3 to 6 year timeline currently the case with the changes in our system and processing, and does that seem right to you?
It sort of depends on the project. So, and it depends on the developer and their urgency. Because we have applications that have been sitting for years and balls in their court, and they just, for whatever reason, have decided it's not a priority for them at this point in time. So it's very individualistic because we can only respond to the information they provide us, and our timeline is 1/2 of the equation. So when a developer says, well, I've been at this for 6 years, well, yes, that's when you originally applied, but you've gone through 4 different iterations of this application over that 6-year period. We as staff have referred it around and gotten information back and provided comments on each of those 4 iterations over that 6-year period. And now we're on our 5th iteration. So whose fault is that? Right? It's not a cut and dry answer. And it's all dependent on how deep the pockets are of the applicant, their ability to get the right professionals involved. I don't know how long the Bayshore application, for instance, took, but I know they applied for their development permit back in March of 2023. But then they changed their plans in January of 2024. And I arrived in June, and we reviewed that revised plan in July of 2024. So a month, after I was here, it was reviewed by council and approved. But all the rezoning work had been done at that point in time. So all the hard work of the geotech and the traffic and the servicing and referring to highways and schools and so it's there's no 2 applications that are the same, and the individual circumstances of each applicant is different. And then, of course, putting it back on us, there's been a lot of turnover of staff and lack of continuity. And so, one staff member is working with the applicant, they get to a certain stage, and then that staff member leaves, and it, gets lost and gets picked up again by somebody else. And so there's fault on both sides, but I've worked for 30 years for municipalities, and I have yet to find an answer for that question, because of course it's the first question they ask when they apply is, what's your, how long do you think this is going to take? And my answer is usually it depends how quickly you get the information to us, right? And because if you can get the information to us quickly, then we can get it back to you quickly. Yeah, sorry, I don't
That's a good
don't have
answer.
a good
Thank
answer
you.
for you because it has a lot of variables. But I would be interested to know like how long the rezoning took for the Bayshore application. Because it's one that's actually started construction now. So I can maybe do some research and find out when that rezoning application first, yeah.
Okay, Al? Oh, yeah.
So, and you're hitting the nail right on the head. Everything is variable. And when I talk about roadblocks, right? I think incumbent upon us as an organization is to identify those roadblocks, which is the ownership of the developer. To say, okay, you need to have this, and this to expect this outcome. Because it's like, okay, you know, people come in and big developers, they're not the problem, right? It's the smaller developers. Some of the big ones, okay, the rezoning, the public input, all of those things all take time. But the world of bureaucracy has definitely shifted, and the accountability piece, you know, the liability, all of those things have to be taken care of. So is the process cumbersome? Absolutely, it is at times. But can it be clearer? Like, is that part of our role to say, as a committee, are those roadblocks achievable? And maybe they're not. Maybe some of them are just cast in stone, and we have to live with certain things. But the predictability piece, if you meet these conditions, we can meet these conditions, like some kind of trading for a guarantee, not guaranteed, but an approximate. And I think that's that unknown. I have I mean, probably we all know there's a large piece of property right very close. I won't say very close to Bayview. There's been multiple discussions with multiple developers. Been in the office, have come here, met with local officials, elected officials, mayor, myself, the different people. And it gets to almost the start line and then it falls back. So when I say 6 years, it could also be that negotiation with the original property owner, because most property owners, I find, don't have the wherewithal or the pockets deep enough to put in 150 or 200 units. So that whole process in the front end. And I think that we've heard here, like that pre-zoning to say, okay, well, we've taken that piece, made that predictable. Maybe that's just one step that we can do in economic development. Because we're going to certainly talk about it, hopefully, at the land use. Anyway.
Okay, good conversation. I'm sure this will continue tomorrow when Tony chairs the land use committee. So we have maybe, let's say 15 more minutes. Yeah, I'm going to get there, Tony. Al, I'm going to go to Al, and then we'll go out into the audience. We have a couple of guests here who also might like to say a few words. You both spoke to this committee in its previous iteration. So, Al.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess for me, I've sat in a lot of different committees over the many years. And my concern is we're not going to solve everything. We can't solve all the problems. Affordable housing, yeah, it's a big problem for workers. But I would like to see us find one or two things that we can zero in on, that we can, and I like what Kevin says, and I wrote it down too, is what are the roadblocks to make that happen? We identify the roadblock, we put our minds together, find out how to overcome that roadblock, and then move on. But I don't want to see us get into this great big world of trying to solve everything at once. Let's pick on a few things, get them done, so we can say have some success. Because what we'll be doing is we'll be meeting 4 years down the road with nothing accomplished and doing this all over again. I heard one good thing today. I wouldn't mind exploring that, but I think there's probably a few that we could zero in on and see how we can push this along with ideas from the public and a push on council and get going. But let's not solve everything. Let's get on to a few, make it happen. That's it. Thanks.
Wise words. Okay, I'm going to call you Marlene this time. Would you want to come to the mic, and we'll find a better way to get you a little closer in future.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's cool. Okay, thank you. To your first question, what are my hopes and dreams for, or expectations, I don't know, for this committee? A lot of people always have a lot of good ideas. Why don't we do just this? Why don't we do that? And usually there are good reasons why we can't do this or that, reasons that the general public doesn't know. So for me, it's really exciting to be here because I get to learn what these reasons are. And we've seen examples of that today, or what these obstacles are, and then to see what this committee decides, which of these obstacles are maybe a priority to try to overcome out of all the ones that are too many to list. And my second thing is, I don't remember, one of you mentioned partnerships as a keyword, and there are lots of community interest groups in Sooke, such as the Chamber, CERTA, the Arts Council, etc. There has been a little uptick that I've seen in partnerships between some of these groups, and I think there's lots of, exciting opportunities in that. And hopefully, as part of this committee, when these opportunities come up, I'll see more of these opportunities for partnerships and maybe ways to support them in small ways. You've brought up some big subjects like mixed zoning, etc., which I have a bunch of notes about that as like a, European, because I like, walkable course and street cafes and public transit and all that. But there are also going to be smaller things that are maybe more achievable on a shorter timeline that are worth discussing. And I'm particularly looking forward to hearing about those and seeing if there's anything that here on behalf of the chamber. Obviously, I'm also on the CERTA board, so I can report back to both and see if we can, usually support whatever initiatives. And then the last thing that I wrote down, I'm just gonna mention it because it's on my list in terms of community empowerment. If there's anything we can do, something small to support the co-ops that exist in Sooke. The only reason I wrote it down is because one of the questions was, where would you send a first-time visitor to Sooke? And the one that came up for me was Vocino, because I think there's just a lot of admirable charm in the way the community tries to support itself, sometimes without any support from, coming from the top. Thank you.
Okay, on that thank you, Marlene. On that last point around the co-ops, so Sooke Region Business Cooperative, can you give us a quick update, Gail, on that?
Yeah, so I'm pleased to. It's been 2 years in the making, and it's almost there. We, as a district of Sooke, joined partners with the WorkLink BC, because they are not just about training and labor. They're an economic development machine. They truly are. So between the two of us, we were looking at what is it that we really need to do to support our business industry within Sooke. We knew there was a lot of small businesses that just didn't have all the information they needed to have. Where can I go for a loan? Where can I go and get help with a business plan, a marketing plan, or whatever? So identifying that we don't have a community futures, we don't have a women's enterprise center, we don't have entrepreneurs society or anything like that. So we got the funding through Cooperatives First Canada to hire or get a consultant to work with us. And we've created and incorporated the Sooke Region Business Services Cooperative. We're now in the final stages of leading towards a launch, which I hope will happen in Q2 of this year. And right now, what we're doing is securing these partnerships. We've been in touch with Van City. They want a partner. That's important. That it meets every bell and whistle that Van City believes in. We've got agreement with Rural Islands Economic Partnership. We're going to get, and we've been told we can get the Women's Enterprise Society to be a partner. They offer loans to women in business up to $70,000, and it keeps going up. a lot of our businesses in town didn't even know about it. We have a Sooke Women in Business Enterprise here, or a network. It has over 60 members. It's been in operation for over 12 years. I didn't know they existed. So when I went and found out about them and did a presentation and told them, this is what we're doing from a cooperative point of view. We're going to have a storefront, which is located at WorkLink BC on Church Street. WorkLink BC is able to use their programming to hire a full-time person to be there, to greet people as they come and sit down, talk. What are your needs? Where are you at? What are your challenges? Sort of do a profile. And then we're able to link that person up with whichever resource that's out there. If it's loans they're after, if it's marketing support or whatever. So it was our answer or solution to not being recognized as a community that is eligible to be a community futures or whatever it is. We actually don't need to now. We're doing it ourselves. And so that shows what can be done through cooperatives. The other thing you have to know about cooperative business development, it's on the rise. And it's going to become more and more common all the time. It's something that's taken many, many years, starting off in the prairie provinces and building up. But now it's a very big industry, a cooperative business development industry. And it also leans into community investments. So we're on this right roll with this, and we hope to be able to get all the partners to sign off. The minute we've got them signed off, over, I'm going to say take maybe 2 more weeks. Then we are going to be working with Christina Moog, our communications director, to do a launch and announcements, news releases, etc. But who's partners in on this? Also, the Sooke Region Chamber of Commerce. There's 3 of us, 3 directors, 1 from the chamber, 1 from WorkLink, and 1 from the district. And it is a good partnership. We understood the alignment that was necessary.
Fantastic, Gail, thank you. Yeah. So interesting, about a decade ago at the Awareness Film Night, which used to be an event we had here, they did a night on co-ops. Andrew Moore and Don Brown were both co-op veterans, and here we are. So thank you. That's fabulous work. Okay, Gord, your turn for the Sooke Arts Council. Arts is very much a part of this mandate, hence your presence.
There we go. So much to say in so little time. Anyway, I'm here representing.
Stretch out for another 5 minutes here at least.
Oh, okay. I'm here representing the Sooke Arts Council, and some of you might know, some of you might not. We have a small gallery on Church Street. We have over 120 members. We have no staff whatsoever. We rely primarily on sales of paintings and art within we've sold close to $18,000 last year, and $16,000 was returned to the artists themselves. So our funding is primarily grants from the municipality here, from the BC Arts Council, and from wherever we have membership $30. So our biggest problem right at the moment is, again, funding and supporting the artists in our community. And I look around at other communities that have supported their arts, and I see that they're doing substantially more. And I think when I look at Sooke and I see what people recognize about Sooke, the arts are one of the big drawing cards. Won the Fine Art Show. It calls in 9,000 people a year into our community, unfortunately for only 10 days. And we have the Philharmonic, and we have a number of other things that I think bring culture to our community, and maybe not from a big monetary point of view, but I think it's important for the other values that we recognize that we strive for in our community. So I think when you're thinking about economic development, I think you should think in terms of how the arts can support what Sooke can be. You asked about what are the three names, the other three things that, and the ones that come to mind are, for me, are values, growth, and stewardship. And those three, we have to decide as a community, where are our strengths and where are our weaknesses? And our strength, I think, is the arts within this community. I think we can attract businesses and small entrepreneurs in the arts and in the small manufacturing. And we don't, I used to live in a couple of big communities, one in Napanee and one in Lowville, New York State. They all had anchor employers. One was the Goodyear tire plant, and the other was Kraft Philadelphia cream cheese, made all the cream cheese for North America. Those communities depended on those things. And if something happened within that plant, those towns suffered. I think Sooke has the advantage of being diversified, and I don't think we should be putting our all eggs in one basket and trying to go look for a super developer. Our strengths are our environment. The environment is our currency in Sooke. That's what brought people here to build houses, to live here, and that's what's generated. I've been here for 30 years. Sooke is basically the same. Over 30 years, it hasn't changed a whole lot. We've got a lot of houses around here now, but you look downtown, you know, and there's opportunity downtown. We're saying that we have to densify downtown, and that's where the growth should be, and which enough urban sprawl. But you know, you think opportunities that Eustis, that whole this subdivision, that whole property back in there, right across from our most, I think one of our cherished parks at Egg McGregor. It's a beautiful park that's not utilized enough because, you know, if you had shops right across the road, small shops, just like Heritage Drive, with artists and everything like that, it'd be, and parking. You know, I said I could carry on it, but I don't see a great opportunity. We hope there's so much growth in Sooke, but the reality is we're not going to get a new second bridge. We're not going to get a big highway coming into Sooke. So let's build on our strength in our arts community and our small nonprofits, get some affordable housing happening here and small jobs. But I think the arts can play a big role in making Sooke just a wonderful place. Anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you. The term you're looking for is non-voting members. They are a member of the committee and can participate in discussion on any items. Then we will have a roundtable after any items for any members voting or non-voting.
So also in our agendas have public comments. So since we don't have an agenda today and we have two members of the public with us, Paula Johansson and Diane Bernard, would either of you like to speak? Paula, I think you were at this committee talking about a recycling depot with Zero Waste Sooke a few years ago. And Diane was here talking about small business, home-based business. So either of you like to step up?
There we go. Great. Hi, I'm Paula. I'm active in a number of groups in Sooke, and I've had a number of people tell me things that they wish they could tell to the council and to the Committee for Economic Development. One of the things that people have done is asked me to talk about it. So I'll give you a very short shopping list, ending with a thing which answers items brought up by every one of you.
Wow.
Okay. The short shopping list says we need to support food security, particularly growing local food and processing it to be eaten locally or to be sold elsewhere. We need to promote medical services available locally, such as specialist doctors like audiologists and cardiologists and foot doctors and so on. That's because we're never going to get a hospital, so we might as well have specialist doctors' offices. There's a call for open air music and theater performances to take place in Ed McGregor Park. That would stimulate small business development at the least, and it would also improve the use of the park for performances and temporary daytime objects instead of people living there, as happened for a while last summer. This way, it's not anybody being cleared out, it's performances. In fact, we could build an arts and music center to employ professionals and provide a studio and performing space that could be rented out. That would be a revenue generating facility. We could support publishers of books or of computer programs and games to set up brand new ones in Sooke or to coax them here from Victoria and Vancouver or California. And we can support adult education, perhaps when the existing building for Sooke Elementary is replaced. The existing building will probably be able to last for another 20 years or 30 after that. And that would make an adult education center. But the one that answers something that each of you has mentioned is a very short project that could have some results this summer, would be to work together with the Sooke Shelter Society and WorkLink BC to provide a program that has free training for industrial first aid tickets. There are a number of people who are underemployed in construction and related fields who would be far more employable if they got a brand new or renewed their industrial first aid tickets. I've talked to people in the biz. It doubles your chance when you go to a temporary work agency and say, I'm ready for work. What can you get me? If you have an industrial first aid ticket, you are twice as likely to get hired for the day. And that can lead to prosperity for that person. We need big projects in Sooke. Go with that small one, please. It can happen now, or our space works with the St. John's Ambulance Society, and they do this. Some of the homeless guys walk in and they don't have to pay that big lump of cash up front to get their industrial first aid ticket. And when they're employed, they get paid more. It's a small goal, but it addresses things each of you has mentioned. So I know you can find it interesting.
Thank you, Paula. I wonder how we get this message over to WorkLink. Yeah, we'll talk about that. So Scott and then Diane.
I just wanted to talk on that behalf. I don't know if everybody here knows that I own an accredited college here in Sooke. And we are looking to talk to the community such as yourself. We already offer an advanced wilderness first aid ticket through one of our partners. So this would be definitely something I'd love to chat with you a little bit more about. I have a classroom. We already do this type of education. It's more on the industrial end, but I do have a company that we work with that can offer that. So why don't you and I chat after this meeting and see if we can get that on the list of priority for you.
Is this on? Yes, it's on. Thank you very much. My name is Diane Bernard, and I am really quite pleased with a lot of the things I've heard today. I want to just say that I'm surprised that I actually agree with much of what Kevin Pearson said. And let's leave it at that. I want to thank Catherine Strongwind for being part of this. It's very, very important to have that perspective here. Excuse me. I'm also wanted to thank Gail Scott. We had a very quick meeting when they had that whole scene of supporting small businesses. And I was able to, we had a good conversation, and I'm so glad because you've implemented a lot of what we had spoken about. So that's on track, and that's really wonderful. The other thing, but my mantra is still, is still the same, that for me, my bias, I come by it honestly, and I think that it's a very important one, is that women in business are critically important to what's going to happen in this town. And when you get down to, I'm a woman in business, and I'm a woman who was a home-based business. And in fact, I didn't even have that. I had a front part of a garage, and that's what I used to get my company going. And today it's quite successful, and we are. It's another story altogether, so we won't go there. Other that it's still a woman in business. We pay good taxes in this community, and women in business still have a hell of a lot to offer us. And I'm keen on working with you on that in the future if you decide, and keep that going. I wanted to just replace that is that Gwen Fisher and myself, we decided to find out more about women in business, and we phoned people and we got the word out through different stores. Come and talk and see what happens. We were quite surprised, and in fact, I brought a young woman, Maya Tate, who was thinking of running for mayor at that time, and that there were 76 women who showed up. It was it was a game changer, and to hear sort of the excitement and to hear what these women were facing, and it was the same issues over and over and over again. And there's I would say that they're much more on the agenda now, and that's really important. They need to be encouraged all the more to get out, and I'm really glad about what's happening on Church Road. That building is so important, and I'm glad to hear that they are opening it up, and it's much more welcoming and for women to come through those doors and say, I need a room, I need a conference session, or these are things I need to do. And this is a place that can help them organize that, or help them use the facility that's available there for them. And thank you very much. And I didn't recognize you. I'm sorry. I knew I was looking at you from the side there, and I realized, of course, you've got the classroom, you've got the space, and you've got the ocean front. I went down there and gave a course on seaweeds, and because they were having kayakers and organizing groups, and what the hell are we pulling ourselves through here besides that? So we had an education session for them, and it went off. I thought it went off. They didn't boo me, so it went off pretty good. So congratulations, and keep going, keep doing that. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. So on that note, Gail?
Deputy Mayor Bateman, I'd just like to add one more thing, that I don't think we've given enough credit to our Sooke Region Chamber of Commerce here. We have a very strong relationship, and we work together with the district, the chamber, and WorkLink, on a number of initiatives. But they keep coming forward with other new ideas that are definitely community economic related. They just came forward last week to address the isn't there an opportunity to work with developers to identify what local individuals that are able to work in Sooke could be hired on those development sites? What kind of criteria is required? And so the chamber wants to start that as an initiative. And when we start looking at other organizations beyond just the district, we can look at the chamber and we can partner with them, and that's what makes it all happen. So there is some start on looking at identifying how we can hire more locals in these construction jobs.
Okay, everyone. So we've heard some very uplifting start to this session, some complications and some big ideas and some practical things we can do in the immediate future. So I look forward to us starting officially in early June. It is possible we meet every other month. We can also schedule special meetings if we have something that we're really honing in on, then we can call a special meeting. Not too many of them, I know, but occasionally, because there's a lot of staff here. And thank you for your presence today. And on that note, we don't adjourn, but we adjourn. Thank you.